Bunny Tears. What's cracking, Bunny Ballers? My name is Bunny Tears. Welcome to yet another mind-blowing facts episode. This one entitled Mind-Blowing Psychological Facts. Now, this is going to be a bit of a weird episode because, as you guys know, this is a mind-blowing facts series. However, what I'm about to tell you couldn't sound further from a fact if I honestly just tried to find the furthest thing from a fact that I possibly could. What I'm about to say sounds like complete bullshit that you will not believe. However, it's out of the reach of science to disprove it. So, it cannot be disproved. It's not possible for this to be disproved, which means, technically, I could consider it a fact. So I was debating whether or not to make this one of the mind-blowing facts videos, but I've decided to because I fucking can. That's why. So, as always, first thing is first, this is a Capture the Flag on Hijacked. It was myself and Y2 Canyon, aka Tokyo Sex Whale, aka the Grand Canyon, channel link in the description. We're basically just playing Capture the Flag to practice for our League Play games, because Capture the Flag's the game mode that we don't really play that much, and we need to get used to. So that's what you're watching. But, let's talk about these psychological things I wanted to talk about. So, my sister sent me an article, which was full of very interesting information, but one thing kind of stood out to me because I've thought about it before, and it's called solipsism. Solipsism is a philosophical theory which asserts that nothing exists but the individual's consciousness. Now, what does this mean? Essentially, what our solipsism is trying to say, the idea behind it, is that everything you're experiencing right now, everything around you, everything you can see, touch, feel, smell, taste, is imaginary. None of it exists. The only reason you think it exists is because your brain is telling you it exists. So really, the only thing we can technically prove is real is the electrical impulses telling our brain that these things are here, rather than these things actually being here. Because, for example, when you hallucinate, your brain is telling you, what the fuck is that big spider fucking thing? What is that? Why is it looking at me? What is it talking? It's talking to me. Oh my god, what the fuck? But clearly that spider thing isn't there, but your brain's telling you it is. Who's to say your entire life isn't a hallucination? And the reason they can't disprove this is because if a scientist sits there and goes, no, look under this telescope at this table. If you can see exactly, I actually just said telescope. Yeah, I meant microscope. You don't look at tables with telescopes. So, look at this microscope at this table. We can see all the cells that make up this table. It's definitely real. Look, listen. See? It's real. And then I can just turn to him and say, okay, prove it's real. In fact, prove that microscope's real. In fact, prove I'm real. Prove that I am not just a part of your brain that just is getting electrical signals sent to it to make you think that I'm a real person. Prove that to me right now. And then what's he going to do? There's nothing you can say to that. He can do as many tests as he wants. But if I turn to him and say, yeah, but prove that those tests are real, then what's he going to do? Show me a few books? Prove those books are real. There's nothing you can say to it. There's no science behind it. It's basically just the electrical impulses that your brain are picking up might just be fabrications. They might not exist at all. It's similar to the brain in a jar theory, which is actually, funnily enough, on the exact same article my sister sent me, which is the idea that you could literally just be a brain in a jar with electrical impulses being sent to it. And it makes you think that you are in this conscious world called Earth, when really you are just a brain in a jar. I think the movie The Matrix was actually based on this idea. I mean, it's just crazy when you think about it. Another thing that I've also heard, this wasn't actually in the article, but another thing that I've heard is, how do you know that you're not dead, and where we are now, this Earth, this planet, is limbo? How do you know this isn't limbo? It seems like it could well be limbo. Now, for those of you who don't know what limbo is, it's kind of like, how to explain it? It's not heaven, it's not hell, it's like purgatory. So it's somewhere you go if you haven't been the perfect person, but you haven't been bad enough to go to hell. So you go to purgatory and you spend a certain amount of time there before you get to go to heaven. It's kind of like prison. That's what the religious people believe. What's to say this isn't purgatory? How can you say to me this isn't purgatory? It seems pretty not good, not bad to me. It seems like you run around and you try to create some kind of mediocre success with some kind of monotone life, monotone friends, and you try to sustain this monotone existence so that people can mourn your monotone life when you die. Who's to say you haven't lived 100 of these lives as a sort of punishment for not being the perfect person you could have been in your actual life? Who is to say that I'm not going to die at the end of my life and God's going to turn to me and he's going to say, okay, that's 49 down, you got another 51 lives to go before you can get into heaven. And then I'll remember everything that's been happening. I'll remember my past 48 lives. I'll remember my original life, which I came from, which I imagine will be pretty fucking sick if this is what purgatory is. And I'd remember seeing heaven, because that's the idea behind purgatory, is you get to see heaven, but you don't get to go to it yet. And if heaven is at the top end of the scale, our lives are beneath it, and purgatory is beneath that, I'd imagine the life that we don't see is going to be pretty impressive. I understand this is pretty hard to follow, but it's essentially the idea that what you're seeing and hearing and tasting and feeling right now is all just tricks that are being played on you by your mind. If you haven't seen The Matrix, which funnily enough, I know James hasn't because he's a fucking freak, go watch that shit and think about it in that perspective. That everything they're doing while they are in The Matrix is just made up by their brain. They're actually just sitting in those chairs with those big rods in the back of their heads. That's essentially what we could be doing right now. And you can't prove to me that that's not happening. Because if you prove something to me, you also have to prove your actual existence to me. You have to prove to me that you are not a figment of my imagination. You couldn't even prove to me that gravity isn't a figment of my imagination, that the planets aren't a figment of my imagination. You couldn't prove to me that the way a human looks isn't a figment of my imagination. So guys, yeah, that was my commentary on solipsism. I hope these mind-blowing quotation mark facts were good enough for you. I have been Bunny Tears. Thanks for listening. Bunny out, bitches! What's cracking, Bunny Ballers? My name is Bunny Tears.